What up, what up? Welcome to my channel where we're doing music covers, original music, album reviews, song reviews, reactions, tier lists, whatever the day calls for. If you like what you see here, please subscribe to the channel. If you have content on here, I'll subscribe to you as well. I am all about supporting up-and-comers on here. My original music can be found at robcary.bandcamp.com. I have one album to my name right now. It is called Communication. It is quite a few years old now. I am currently in the studio working on the follow-up to that album. It will be called Ugly Living. It's been quite a few years in the works now. Being that it's been this long for me to get the opportunity to go into a studio and record my next album, because for the longest time I didn't even think it was ever going to happen, is that I've had the ability to sit on a lot of these songs that I started writing a few years ago, maybe a couple years ago, and some of them are like brand new, and really like deep dive into all the different genres that I have roots in and that I have loved playing ever since I first started playing music. And one genre these last couple years that I've really taken a deep dive into is reggae. 311 has been my favorite band since 97, and they're genre blenders. They always have been, and that's one of the things that drew me into them right away, is like their vocal harmonies, the genre blending, and just like that no fucks given, no holds barred kind of approach to their songwriting. When it comes to the backbone of the kind of stuff I write, it is mostly rooted in heavier music, but I'm really looking to branch out this time around. On my second album, I'm looking to do a lot of different things, and make it all cohesive. Like when it comes to these modern day groups in this genre, Tropidelic was the first one to stand out to me because of how amazing the vocals are, the hooks are, and how they're a group that refuses to be put in a box. And then when I found out about the band Ayatera, I really went down a rabbit hole with them because their frontman, Nathan Aurora, comes from like a metalcore kind of background. You can hear it in his guitar playing and his songwriting, and this dude is he's basically a songwriting genius. And Ayatera is on a break right now because he's moved on to this new group, Aurorawave. And I've crawled so far down this rabbit hole with modern reggae music that I'm listening to about as much reggae as I am heavy music.
What's happening to me? Something is wrong.
There's been a lot of cool stuff I found out about, though. I know about Iration. I know about The Elevators. I know about Irie Soulja's a really good vocalist. I know about Dirty Heads. Like some of these groups I'm more of a fan of than others. Some of them just have these really good songs that I love, but I don't love the project as a whole. Like I like a lot of Stick Figure stuff, and that new track that Stick Figure remade of some old Sublime recordings, I think it's called Feel Like That. Stick Figure made that song interesting. All his parts are really the only parts I paid attention to. I'm trying to get into his singing style. I recognize that he's an amazing songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, produces his own stuff. Like, I think the guy's name is Scott from Stick Figure, and he's collaborated with Nathan Aurora before. And I want to talk about pivoting. When it comes to my own music, I have no desire to pivot. I don't understand pivoting to a completely different genre of music. Like, I feel like you got, like, my roots are in heavy music, but I want to, like, do all this other shit, man. Like, I've always loved pop punk. You'll find that in my first album. Post-hardcore, you'll find that in my first album. I do flirt with some reggae stuff here and there, but I want to do way more of it on my second album. And my musical mission is way different than the artists that we're going to be talking about today. But I just want to shout out as many of these bands as I can because I found some really cool stuff. These two stand out the most to me, Tropidelic and Aurorawave, but I would say number 3 for me is this band Cary. They're spelled Hirie. I found out about them because I subscribed to their drummer's channel. Amazing drummer. His name's Matt Benoit, I want to say. And I talked to him a couple times on his channel, and he kind of like schooled me on some of the tropes of reggae drumming and stuff. Like, really cool guy. And then I checked out their music, and I watched a performance of theirs on Sugar Shack. And their singer is this stunningly beautiful woman who has the voice of an angel, and I can't decide if her voice or her looks are prettier. She's just wow. I've never done a double album review before, but I feel like both of these bands, Tropidelic and Aurorawave, are so out of the box in the way they write their songs, but still kind of like exist under a similar framework. Out of all the reggae I've heard this year, these are the two albums: Tropidelic's Royal Grove, which I got on CD, and Aurorawave's self-titled, got that too. These are both very different albums under this umbrella, but if there's one thing both Tropidelic's new album, Royal Grove, and Aurorawave's self-titled have in common, it's that both of these albums are littered with guests, like guest spots in the songs. Every single one of the guests in both of these albums completely slay what they do, and they're such a welcome addition to the album. Every guest on both of these albums, Tropidelic's Royal Grove and Aurorawave's self-titled, did such a fantastic job. Let's get into this one first, because it came out first. Tropidelic's Royal Grove. They had a handful of singles that came out beforehand. I'm just going to do a track by track for both of these albums. Like, some of these songs I've heard before. Some of them I've even covered on this channel already. But Royal Grove opens up right out the gates with a track with a guest star, Toby Raps. And the track is called Affirmation. And one thing I really felt all through listening to this album was like 90s vibes. Not always just 90s reggae, like a lot of 90s pop rock and stuff too. And this opening track, Affirmations, really reminded me of like New Radicals a little bit, a band that's so 90s that they didn't even make it out of the 90s. And I don't know who a lot of these guests are on this album, because a lot of them, there's a lot of hip hop on this thing. That's what I'm saying about like these albums, these two albums, is you can't confine it to reggae. Whereas Aurorawave has way more metalcore and rock than your typical reggae album. This one here has way more rap in it. Like even radio pop, a lot of hip hop, you know. These are not just your straight up reggae albums. And with Affirmations, it's a great way to kick this thing off. The vocal hook is great. And this band does not sound anything like 311, but when it comes to the way the two vocalists in this band play off of each other, you can't help but think of 311, because you got this amazing crooner. I think his name's Matthew Rhodes, right? And then you got a rapper who I think plays a trombone too in the band. And all the rap in this album, be it from, I think his name's James, correct me if I'm wrong, or a guest star, all the rap in this album is like some of the highlights. All the rap in this album is good as fuck. Number 2, Ease Up. I reacted to this song on the channel, and I still listen to it all the time. It's an awesome song. Great hook. Great lyrics, you know. It's not anything that makes you think too much. It's just basically about having a day job, and for the last hour of the day, leave me the fuck alone. I'm not trying to keep up. Get off my ass. We're almost done here. I like it, man. I love this song. I listen to it all the time. I practice to it all the time. Number 3, Same Hat. Same deal. This one has a special guest called Ritz, and I like his feature a lot, but I think James, the actual rapper of this group, steals the show with this, but I like practicing to all of it. Number 4, Movie Star. It has a guest spot from The Far Side, a name I haven't heard since the 90s. His name is not here for some reason, but this song's all right. I like it. I never skip it, but it's not a top track to me. Number 5, Humble. Okay, The Palmer Squares. That's another guest I've never heard of, but all the raps that are provided on this track are amazing and add to the track so much. And then you got what I feel is one of 2 of the best tracks on this album. Number 6, Floating with Iration in the Elevators. 2 bands that I have checked out because I like this track so much. And it's like, yeah, all my favorite songs from this album aren't very rap heavy, but that's not to downplay how great all the rap sections are in this album. Floating doesn't have any, but it's just such a good hook. It's like right on the edge of being dub reggae, like the psychedelic dub feel. That's like my favorite part of reggae, but this is a pop reggae song through and through, but it's just so good. The vocals are so good. Then we got number 7. It's called La La. The main hook of this song could be better. And it reminds me of Imagine Dragons a bit. And with how fire all the rap and all the rest of the song is, I wish this song had a better hook. But it's not bad. I never skip it just because, aside from that la la hook, everything else in this song is just straight fire. All the raps are amazing. Same deal with Ride. It's like, and I don't know if it's because I feel like being somebody who is like at my core a metalcore, deathcore kind of guy. I think I do still have kind of like a meter of how pop I go. And La La and Ride, the hooks in both of those songs are just kind of like just too whimsical and carefree for my personal taste. But again, the verses, everything else in the song is fire. So not only do I never skip these two tracks, I go back to them a lot. Number 9, the other top track on this album, Grove. I love every second of this song. It has so much 90s vibes. What the vocalist is doing all through with the rapid fire lyrics and like the breathy vocals, when to put a little bit of gut into it, when to draw back, and like just everything is just pure emotion with this track. It's a track that, from what I get from the lyrical content, is just about forgive yourself for the dumb things you did when you were younger. It's one of the best songs. This one and Floating, I can't decide if they're the best ones, but they're both just great tracks. Number 10, Crossover. Initially, when this album came out, I was avoiding Crossover because I had a feeling from how people were talking that this was going to be the best track on the album, something with a little bit more depth, not so carefree, and just really, really amazing. And I wanted to react to it, but I couldn't wait, I couldn't wait. And I just listened to it anyway. And you know what? It's not a top track, in my opinion. I think it had the potential to be. It's too short. It ends before it really has the chance to take off. And everything you're hearing in that track is really good. It just ends too soon. It feels like a very incomplete composition, in my opinion, and kind of an underwhelming way to close this thing out. But again, I mean, there's nothing on this thing I'm going to skip. I love this album. 9 out of 10 all day. Everybody did a great job. It's a very vocal-centric album. You're going to notice the vocals, be it from the two amazing vocalists that are in this band or the guests. That's what you're going to notice first, because the difference between this and Aurorawave is a reggae rock band. Tropidelic is not a rock band in any way, shape, or form. Most of the drums you'll hear on this album are electronic. It all sounds like rap drums. I've gone back to this album a shit ton, and that just shows you how good they are at writing songs, the vocal delivery, the rapid fire lyrics. There's just so much to keep you coming back to this thing. I love this thing. Me and my buddy actually went to see 311 in Cleveland. I'm from Pittsburgh area. And during the drive, these are the ones we were listening to the most, I did make him listen to Knock Loose. Have you guys heard the new Knock Loose album? You Won't Go Before You're Supposed to. It's really fucking good, man. And I want that kind of shit to be in my music just as much as this poppy reggae stuff too. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, finding out about these modern day reggae bands is really kind of like a musical turning point for me, because I'm never going to stop doing heavy shit, but knowing about these bands is just expanded my musical horizons and also made my vocals better. We're getting to the point here where I'm talking about this album almost as long as its actual length. So let's just move on to the next one. The next one is the self-titled album from Aurorawave. Let's do a track by track here. Meant to Be. I reacted to it already, and I know all the words of this song, and it's been a huge help to me with breathing techniques. And it's a really good song. Number 2, Inferno, another song that's already been released. I practiced to it a ton also. And it has a feature from the drummer of Atreyu, who is also the vocalist of Atreyu, as far as I know at this point. I'm not that big of a fan of Atreyu, so I got to look into that more. But I think, I mean, he was the clean singer like from day one as he played drums. So I don't know if he's like the vocalist completely now, but his feature in that song was incredible. It's a really nice mid-tempo track with a lot of power in it, a lot of cool guitar leads. It grabbed me right away, as did the third track, Stratosphere. Got a vocal cover for that up on the channel. And this one's more of a poppy reggae song with island vibes. Like, we're not doing too much genre blending here, and this song benefited from that. And the hook of this song was teased ahead of time, as I said in my reaction to this video. And the hook is fire. The whole song's fire. I knew it was going to be from day one. I rated this song an 8.5 out of 10 when I reacted to it, but nah, it's a perfect 10. It's a perfect song. As is the next one, Rise and Shine. Of all the non-single tracks on this album that I didn't hear already until I got the CD, Rise and Shine was the one that stood out to me the most first. Like, it's mid-tempo too, kind of like Inferno, but it's more just kind of a laid-back, introspective kind of song about how you just kind of gotta rise above hardship and shine your light, you know? Let's talk about Boiling Point. I reacted to this song already. It's got Jonathan Vigil from The Ghost Inside. The Ghost Inside is a band that I've done guitar covers of or reacted to on this channel several times. I've been a fan of them since the Returners era. Seeing him collaborate with this musician that I'm just finding out about and bringing these worlds together, like, it was just awesome. That song was everything I wanted it to be. See You Around and Life, those are the next two tracks. Those are probably my least favorite tracks on this album, and there are going to be people that these two tracks do a lot for. What these tracks set out to do, they do very well. I'm not talking shit on them, but I feel like it might just be because my roots are so much in heavy music. I think there might still be a meter of how pop and whimsical I go. Like I said with like some of the songs on the Tropidelic album, that these two songs, See You Around and Life, just, I keep listening to them. I want them to do more for me. And I'm just not latching onto those ones. But for the people that they do latch on for, I'm grateful that these songs exist. I'm not talking bad about it. Those are the two low points on this album for me personally. Then after the song Life, we get kind of like an outro to that song, Afterlife. And it starts off with these piano sections that sound like this rainy coffee house kind of vibes, jazzy vibes. If he actually played those two, I gotta ask him, is there anything you can't do? If Aurorawave as a collective didn't have any outside writers on this album, and it was either just Nathan writing everything or the four people in this band writing everything, just wow, man. Like, goddamn, you know? Number 9 is Kindness, and it features Franz from Attila. And we talked in the Stratosphere reaction a little bit about Franz from Attila being in the song. And even though I'm not a big fan of Attila, I said in my reaction to Stratosphere when I saw the track list for this album that I think Franz and Nate could collaborate very tastefully on an Aurorawave song. This is probably my favorite thing I've ever heard Franz do. I'm just not a big Attila fan, you know? And I've checked out some of their stuff. Out of all the stuff I've ever heard from Attila, the only song that really grabbed me is their song Back Talk. And even that one at the end, he does some cringe stuff that kind of like brings the track down. Like, but on this, everything he does is awesome. And that's what I said about both of these albums. All the guest spots, there's tons of them. And they're all amazingly done. There's no guest, in my opinion, that you would say, I wish he wasn't there. No, they're all good. They're all good. I kind of neglected to mention this guest on Rise and Shine, Leighton Meekum. Never heard of him. I'm guessing he's probably a reggae artist. His vocal spot in like the second verse, it kind of reminds me of an Ayaterra song called Follow Your Heart. and there's the guest on like the second verse, and it's done in a very similar fashion, and it plays there, it plays here, you know. And that's something I want to talk about when we get to the last track, expectations, and what I think the expectations of Nathan should be. We'll get there. Number 10, background noise. This is the second non-single track that got my attention right away. And there's a guest on this, Sat Sang. I've never heard of him, but I saw the little short they did. I wish that would have been a full-fledged music video because it would have been awesome if it was. His feature is awesome in this song. It brings a little bit of a reggae and rap vibe to his delivery. And the hook is extremely strong. It's a really, really good song. And every time I listen to it, I think of ice cream. Number 11, No Love Lost. This was an early on single, and I'm surprised this one is as late in the album as it is. It kind of came off to me as an earlier in the album kind of track. There's tons of energy in it. Great hook. No Love Lost is another one of those songs where I learned how to do like more rapid fire vocal delivery, breathing techniques. That's the one thing I want to thank Nathan Aurora so much for, is without even ever having met me, he's taught me so much about breathing techniques, when to belt, when to relax, all this shit. In addition to like his abilities as a songwriter and an multi-instrumentalist and everything like that, like in addition to how much more rock is being introduced on this album compared to Ayaterra, there's way more pop and R&B vibes, honestly, on this thing too. And you really hear that in the closer. We're going to get to that here because we got one more track, number 12, Trust and Believe. This is the one that where we're really flexing our reggae vibes here. And I think this is the only one that really flaunts horns, like brass stuff that you hear in reggae music. There's a lot of that here. Swing time beat, very catchy hook. I wouldn't consider it a top track, but that's only because of how highly I hold the top tracks on this. This one is just kind of like, I don't want to say there because it's really, really good, and it's still better than what a lot of people in this field are bringing. I'm convinced this guy can write hooks in his sleep, like, and I don't just want to give credit to like him. Like, I like all the people in all the bands he's been in, whether they're invested songwriters in the project or just hired guns. It doesn't matter, man. And that brings us to the closer, expectations. Very pop, very R&B influenced reggae song. And on this one, I wonder what he's speaking on specifically, because most of the reception I've seen to him switching from this one band to another has been pretty positive. I haven't seen too much backlash, and I was kind of gutted when Ayaterra broke up because I didn't even find out about him until the Garza podcast. If it wasn't for Chris Garza and his podcast, I would not know who this fucking guy is. And that's just like not even like close to what Garza's podcast has brought to my radar musically. I learned about so many bands I may not have ever found out about if it wasn't for his amazing podcast. 1056. I already knew about Gideon. I've seen Gideon live like 10 some years ago, but he put them back on my radar. And their last album, More Power, More Pain, was like so amazing. It ended up making like a very high slot on my top albums of 2023. But when I saw that he had this guy, Nathan Aurora, on, and the caption was pivoting from deathcore to reggae, I was all ears, man. And that's where the rabbit hole began, you know? Like, I found out about Tropidelic first, but Nathan and his bands, that's really where the rabbit hole began. I mean, like, I've always loved 311. 311's been my favorite band since 97, but I always just kind of wanted to hear them do reggae, you know? I didn't, like, listen to them and say, I want to crawl down all these other rabbit holes. Like, I just wanted to hear them do it. But Nathan, like, really opened my eyes to, like, how much great stuff is going on in the modern age of reggae, and everything isn't just this repetitive stuff over and over again that you heard in the old days with, like, Bob Marley and stuff. I mean, no disrespect, but the old days of reggae, the old school stuff, it just never grabbed me. But these newer bands, man, like, the songwriting's more interesting. The songs are shorter and more things are conveyed in a short message, and it's just better, in my opinion. I hate saying it, but this song, this closer, Expectations, he's talking about how people shouldn't expect him to write about the same things he wrote about 10 years ago. And, you know, is he living up to people's expectations? And if he's talking about people that wished he would have stayed in Ayaterra, in my opinion, having listened to all the Ayaterra stuff at this point, when it comes to his lyrical message, what he stands for, I don't think that much has changed. I think his message has stayed the same. I think, like, this is presented in a little bit more of an abrasive fashion, a less hippy-dippy fashion. But if you were going to compare this to the kind of lyrics he was writing 10 years ago, as far as the message and what he stands for, I'd say it's the same, And there's something to be said for that, I can't completely identify with all of these artists, They do bring a more carefree vibe than I'm looking to bring with my music. Whereas my music, I don't want to spoil too much. I got the next single's coming in September, and knowing about these groups has even influenced that single. And that's what I'm saying. Like, having all this time to sit on these songs is going to make them better, more diverse, For people that are familiar with my content, at the end of the year, I always do my lengthiest video, and it is like the top 10 albums of that said year. I don't know where these two are going to go, but they're going to be on it, and they're going to be very high up on it. These are amazing groups, amazing musicians. Like, the vocal interplay between the two vocalists of Tropidelic, it's so similar to Nick and Essay from 311, but the band sounds nothing like them. But the way they play off each other reminds me of it, because you got this masterful crooner here, and then you got this rapper who's amazing. What I would do to see 311 and these two bands live, like, that would be so sick, This is getting a little bit lengthy, I know, but I haven't been on here in a while, and I don't know when I'm going to be back, just because I'm really busy. So I want to get a good bit of content on here. I hope everybody's enjoyed hearing me talk about these albums. I hope the people that have heard these albums really are enjoying them as much as I am. That's all I got to say about these. They're both getting 9s, 9 out of 10. That's all I got to say about these. Until next time, thanks for watching.